I just wanted to make sure we touched on some of the questions that came our way, and I think we've touched on a number of them already. One was, can you overstretch fascia? That was an early one that we both looked at and sort of highlighted.
Yeah.
Quick comment on that?
Oh yeah, a big comment on that. Our old understanding was we were stretching when we were doing this, and sure enough, elastin does open up. But what's happening is we are within these boundaries. The outside of our skin is our boundary, and when we have fascial restrictions of any kind, what's happening is collagen and elastin is folding over on itself. And so it becomes restricted as it folds over on itself. And when we release it, what's happening is we're not stretching, we're elongating so that the origami can kind of go out to its outer limit. But we don't want it to go past the outer limit. And here's an auxetic contraction. This is a Hoberman sphere, and we use it often to teach breathing. When you breathe in, if you start, when any part of the breath will affect the whole body, but you breathe in to the limit of your boundary, and then you breathe out. And if you breathed in beyond the limit of your boundary, you'd be in trouble. And we don't usually have breathing or lung problems that way, but we do have muscle, soft tissue problems that we have sprained ankles, we have stretch marks. That is pathological, elongating the elastin and the collagen beyond its physiological limit. That's a stretch. And just like a shear, we don't want to use the word shear because shear means cut, like shears. What we mean is a diagonal, a diagonal kind of elongation. And then the other one is slide. There's no sliding underneath the skin. It's all glide because of this wonderful hyaluronic acid. And there is no, there are no empty spaces. There are no open spaces. They're all filled with this gluey stuff. And we have to have just the right amount of hyaluronic acid to have the good glide. If we have too much, it gets stiff. We lose compliance. If we don't have enough, it doesn't glide enough. So it's a balancing the hyaluronic acid. Somebody said, what about these products that they're selling now? Hyaluronic acid is difficult to get it to metabolize for the body to use it. You have to be really very careful. I think there are probably some out there that might be helpful, but I think for the most part, people don't know what they're buying when they buy hyaluronic acid or collagen for that matter, if they want to be healthy.
Yeah. And so again, in summary, that if you were using extreme force that you actually damage tissue would be too much.
And stretching is pathologic. Stretching in the new sense. In the old, we're never going to change it. There's a whole industry based around stretch therapy. They're not going to change it for sure. But the fact is that when you understand really how fascia works, you want to adopt a new language, because the old language puts us back to the scalpel in the 1500s. We are not parts. We are not made of parts. We're one whole, one dynamic whole. And when one thing moves, everything moves. Yeah.
You know what you just reminded me of? We were arguing in the clinic, a couple of us therapists, and ignorantly so, but we were working with somebody that had a shoulder pathology, and we just couldn't figure out where in the body the restriction was coming from. And you just came zipping by and you said, check the left ankle. And we're all like, oh, Carol, you are so crazy. And sure enough, it was dorsiflexion loss in the left ankle. And we just got the fibula moving, and her right shoulder started moving without pain. And we were all just sort of like flabbergasted, going like, what the heck? But since then, the idea, and again, this is very important for us as Pilates teachers, is that, you know, we are creating these incredible whole body movement experiences.
Yeah.
And it's in these whole body movement experiences. Even think of the mat work. Like we go from roll up, roll downs, rollovers, side bending, side lift, mermaid. And we're moving these tissues in all planes, hopefully within their limits, so we don't push beyond the limits, which is nice because Pilates is relatively safe compared to all the other, you know, exercise forms that are out there that we can load tissue. We should never be so overzealous that we would actually do harm. And this happens sometimes in yoga where they're trying to pull a pose with a very westernized body, trying to do a pose that their tissues have not adapted to. And their weakest link ends up moving too much to a point that they maybe are doing some tissue damage themselves. This is where we want to be careful, is that it's just having these successful movement experiences are going to bring about more benefits to our clients than any one perfect exercise or a perfect organization. It's bringing the awareness and the connection between body and mind and spirit, the whole body thing. Beautiful work.